And we're back. Howdy y'all, this is Ethan Bonreal playing Papo and Yo, and last time we were here, we kicked off the game as our protagonist Quico, who fell into a magical land located in his magical closet. And while we were here, we ran into a magical girl and picked up our robot friend Lola. And then finally, before we cut the video, we ran into a monster. And we're gonna go check out what's going on with that monster, because it headed into that building to our left. But before that, we got some platforming to do and some puzzle solving. So, this is kind of like what we did with the houses earlier, where if we move blocks, and we move them to these magical squares, it has an effect on the environment that's similar to moving the actual blocks. But unfortunately, we actually need to borrow one of those blocks first, again, to reach the other block. Oh my. But this upcoming part of the game is pretty interesting. It adds a new gameplay dynamic that I think a lot of people, if they're playing this game without having heard about it or played it, or even if you have heard about it, you might not understand how it comes together. But it's a dynamic that's really interesting, and kind of the game makes you toy around with a lot, but you kind of get afraid of, or it's a little bit unnerving later on when you really understand more about it. But in any case, our little friend came back here, and it looks like she's playing keep away with our box. But sadly we need that, so we gotta go ahead and put an end to this foolishness. Oh man. Alright, let's get up here. Alright. So, as you can see, we can't make it that far without that box, so we do need to capture her. So let's go ahead and... Oh, there we go. Go ahead and get her in there. There we go, and now she has nowhere to run, so she has to put the box down and use her magic powers to escape. See ya. Alright, and now we got our box. And now we get to see what comes next. We get to follow that monster into the, I guess it's not a house, but... Well, I guess if you live there, it's a house, so I guess that's the monster's house. So let's go ahead and do it. Oh man. Alright, we're going in. I think... There we go. That when you first play through this, when you first go through this area, the music is kind of indicative of how this is going to be a learning experience. And in fact, that's kind of what this whole segment, this whole chapter is about, is it's a learning experience. I mean, you learn most things in games through trial and error, or like a tutorial, but in this case it's going to be a bit different, and it kind of is going to have meaning. Oh. Hey, it's the monster. It's going to have meaning outside of just the gameplay. It's going to kind of try to teach a lesson, I guess, and I'll get back more to that anyway. But before I get out of myself, let's go ahead and figure out what we need to do here. Alright, you can climb on Monster's belly while he's sleeping. Alright, and I guess the monster's name is Monster. Move the camera to look at where you want to jump. Press space to jump high. Alright, let's do that then. Alright. And I think that's the way we need to go. Huh. And there's another mural. We'll get a better look at that in a bit, but for now, let's see where we are. This area is a lot less open than the initial area that we started the game in. but it still has its own charm, I guess. But it's a little bit more... It's a lot less warm, I guess. It feels a bit, not necessarily lonely to me, but kind of solemn. Let's go ahead and pull this. So we're going to get a better look at that mural, and we're going to see what the purpose of that string was. It was to let Monster out. There we go. And I'm sure that has some important meaning. Or maybe it doesn't, actually. It could not have an important meaning, but it's pretty cool to see. So we need to get Monster to leave there, because as we saw, that switch we stepped on had a picture of Monster on it, so I think that means we need to bring them over there to sit on that thing. There we go. And it looks like Monster really likes these coconuts. There we go. To the point where Monster just shoves them in their mouth. I wonder why. I actually probably shouldn't use gender-neutral pronouns for Monster, because I know the end of the game, so I know that Monster is a male, so I guess I'll just say him and he, but whatever. This is actually one of my favorite shots in the game, where it starts raining abruptly and Monster looks over his shoulder and looks back at the place that he came from. And as a player, it's pretty neat, because you kind of are unable to really go back to a lot of the previous places you go to. In this segment, like, once you solve the puzzle, you're just gone, and you really... It's interesting that you have Monster with you, but you can't really get away from him. You really need him to be able to get through things. And that might not actually be a good thing. Let's see. Lula. But in the meantime, let's go ahead and enjoy this while we can. So it looks like Monster's pretty hungry, so let's figure out if we can get him more coconuts. I think that might actually be all of them. I don't see any more to take down for him. And then there's one more over there. There we go. Huh. I'm sorry, I'm kind of just staring at the scenery. I really, really like this game. I wish I had a higher-end computer so I could show y'all how nice this looks on really high graphical settings, but I have to turn it down a bit. And then, of course, rendering the video lowers the quality a little bit. There we go, let's get up there. I think what this kind of reminds me about, and isn't directly related to the game, is kind of... I think a bit my childhood, and then I guess life in general. And kind of that stage in your life where you can't really do that much by yourself, and you're really kind of wound up and wrapped up in the ongoings of other people. Because at this point in the game, you are almost entirely dependent on Monster to really get by and get through the puzzles. And you have to really stop and wait for him to kind of move at his own pace. Or kind of sometimes even trick him into doing what you want. So right now we need to grab another coconut, because we need to keep him busy while we lift this area up, because it actually has a crank that we can pull to get him up here. Hey, it's her. She wants us to bring him into the circle. So that's kind of what I meant. Actually, I don't know if I talked about this yet. It's a shame, I've recorded this a few times, but what I was saying earlier, and I guess this will be a rehash for y'all, is that girl who we've been following, she's playful sometimes and she's menacing others, and you can't really tell what she wants to do with you, or what she really wants to do with Monster. And we'll see that she doesn't seem to really like that Monster's there, and that's kind of where their relationship changes. It's when you start heading towards Monster, and then once you have Monster following you, your relationship with her really abruptly changes, and it's more of an antagonistic one. Open. There we go. He's trapped by her magic. And there's nothing he can really do to get out by himself. So in this scenario, he's actually dependent on us, but the difference is that while we couldn't do anything without him, the reason why, well, not the only reason why, but we can't really go any further without him. But he could definitely just be cool just sleeping all day once we get him out of the cage, so it's neat to think about it that way. Because a lot of the things Quico can do in this game are really based off of what other people kind of can do for him. Because if you didn't have Lula to do that, this game would be a lot harder. And if you didn't have the magical girl and her magic to power a lot of these puzzles, like these scissors that are here, we wouldn't be able to get much further. And if we didn't have Monster, we wouldn't be able to progress much at all either. But I'm not going to really spoil what goes on much more, and I don't think I've really been that spoilery. I've just been talking about themes for the most part. But I think that this, I remember when I was first playing through this part, it made me a little bit anxious, actually, because I think it's the rain, honestly, because rain tends to make me pretty anxious, even though I like rainy days. I actually really like days where, oh man, I'm kind of spacing out here. I really like rainy days in the summer, where it's still really warm outside and the rain steams as it hits the ground. And I think it's partly because it reminds me of my childhood, because I've just lived in the southern US for most of my life, and that's not too uncommon. It rains not a lot. It rains enough, and then it's always really hot and humid, so that's not too uncommon, but it's just one of those familiar things. Anyway, I completely ignored that. So we let some frogs out, and as you can see, Monster seems really interested in them damn frogs. And oh my god, they are so fucking cute. I really love chubby animals with all of my being. When I first saw the scene, this actually freaked me the fuck out, because the creator did a really good job of capturing that look that something has on its face when it, like, really wants something. Like when a dog sees food it wants, or someone sees something that, like, they need or really desire. And maybe I'm just being dramatic because I'm a nerd, and that's what nerds tend to do, is overemphasize the brilliance of shit that they're into. But he looked at them frogs like they were something delicious to eat. But now that he can't get to them, he's a lot less interested in doing anything now, so we got some puzzle solving to do while he's busy sleeping. This is going to take me a bit to figure out, because I always forget this part, because you have to go back and forth a lot here. But this is actually a very interesting visual trick. If you couldn't see, there was something above us, we are actually going to be in the same area for a while here, but we're gonna move the buildings around in a way that completely restructures this place. Kinda like what's going on right now. But you're gonna see that it's gonna open up a lot more. Really quick here. Oh hey. So, Monster got up again, because as you can maybe hear, there are more frogs over here. Oh man, he really wants them things. I'm getting kinda sleepy. I might need to turn in a little bit early from this recording, but I wanna get through it to the good part. I wanna give y'all some closure. I honestly don't know if people are enjoying this LP that much. I like Papo and Yo because it's a really reflective game and it's fun to platform. But maybe I'm biased because I'm used to doing RPGs for a while, where there's like a plot to move along. That's kind of the trade-off, because that's what I like about doing games like this, is that I can just prattle my little gay mouth off, and not have to worry about that much dialogue to stop and read. But on the flip side, I feel a little bit aimless trying to come up with shit to talk about, other than the game. I guess I could tell you about what the fuck I've been doing at work. But that's boring, because I've just been doing the same thing I always do, selling shit to people. I could tell you that I live in a new apartment with my family, and we are going to... Oh, hey, frogs. So this is telling us how we can get rid of the frogs. Because as long as the frogs are out, Monster is going to be completely absorbed and like trying to get them, so we need to get rid of them. Sadly, that means we have to get rid of this little cute fella. I'm sorry, friend. Splat. But luckily they don't seem to die, they just kind of phase out of reality, so that's good. I don't want to have horrible frog nightmares. Alright, let's get rid of the last one. You actually can get an achievement if you do land a bullseye, but I think I already got it on a previous playthrough. I don't know if I can get it again. Well, like I was saying, I live in an apartment with my family now, and I feel like we're gonna end up fighting a lot. Well, in part because I'm really moody, and being around my parents for a long time makes me really moody. And we all deal with our anxiety very differently. Like, I want to be left alone, and my mom wants to be around people. And my dad just kind of wants to lay around and do dad stuff. And that clashes a bit. Can you get on here, Monster? Thank you. Oh my god. That is, usually the game is pretty good about getting him to, like, move over to where he needs to be if you get the coconuts near the point. There we go. So, now you can see this area is a lot bigger than it used to be. But we're not quite done moving stuff around here. But I guess for now, I think we need to wrap up this video. So, I guess I'll catch y'all later.